Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jerry Kelly with Real News Always. If you like my content, please give me a thumbs up, push that bell, because YouTube has been screw tube for me. I guess it's too much real news. But here goes Mike Pompeo talking about athletes should boycott the Olympics in China and our strike against Syria airbase. Thank you for watching. Roll the clip.
Joining me now is former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Secretary Pompeo, why should the world community honor Beijing with its presence?
Laura, thanks for having me on. That was a pretty good catalog of what's taking place with the Chinese Communist Party today. We shouldn't honor the Chinese Communist Party with this. Indeed, President Biden talks about wanting to lead coalitions. Great. This is a wonderful place to start. And we did this kind of thing with respect to China. You remember, Laura, when we first went after Huawei, we recognized this was dangerous for the American people. It was a lonely place out there for the Secretary of State traveling the world. But we did it. We led, and we got 60 nations to join us in saying, nope, we're not going to put this Chinese technology inside of our national systems. We should do the same thing with the Olympics. We should get every country to recognize that we don't want to honor the Chinese Communist Party with this. And I'll say this, too. Remember, July 1st of last year, they passed a national security law. What athlete wants to travel to China and know that if you said anything about the Chinese Communist Party, you're likely to be arrested? This law can arrest you anywhere and at all time. It was designed to shut people up. We've seen that happen. Remember the issue with the general manager of the Houston Rockets? This national security law is dangerous. I would tell any athlete thinking about going to China, be very careful about the things you say. And that's precisely the kind of prohibition that the Chinese Communist Party wants to do so they can continue to expand their propaganda efforts. It was a bad idea for the IOC to award it, and America ought to lead the movement of these games to someplace other than China.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least likely, 10 being the most likely, what will the Biden administration do, do you think?
Boy, I'm gonna root for them to get it right, Laura.
Yeah.
You know,
okay.
we haven't
You're being
seen
charitable.
we haven't seen tremendous strength there yet. We've seen them declare that yes, in fact, there was genocide, but we haven't seen them honor the commitments that come with understanding that genocide is taking place inside of China. And we saw what happened in the previous administration. We saw them where Rwanda was engaged in genocide, and we saw them walk away from it. That's the same actors today at the State Department. I hope they get it right here.
And Secretary Blinken has, just back to that point, has said that he agreed with you that China's guilty of genocide. He said, my judgment remains that genocide was committed against the Uyghurs, and that hasn't changed. So, again, the Secretary of State says they are guilty of committing ongoing genocide against 1 million Muslims or more. We don't really know the whole figure. And yet we're going to trot over to Beijing and give Xi the greatest propaganda coup that he could publish. I mean, the fact that we're even considering that, to me, is it almost takes your breath away. We got to ask you about the airstrikes tonight in Syria. A lot of people out there tonight saying, you know, look, this is Iran-backed forces in Syria, response to rocket attacks in Iraq. We don't know all the intel, but look, I was critical of President Trump's bombing of Syria, and likewise seemed skeptical of this. Isn't this what China wants as well, for us to get bogged down even more in the Middle East, Mr. Secretary?
Well, you've got to protect your force. You've got to establish deterrence. We did this a couple times. It was effective. I don't know what they struck or what targets they went after. I hope it just wasn't bombs in the desert. I hope it really went after something that threatened the United States of America. If not, it's useless. You don't need to get bogged down there to take an airstrike. I'm confident that we could do it with getting in and getting out. We've got to make sure that we deter the Iranians every place. Weakness and appeasement with the Iranians will only be rewarded with more terror from them.
Secretary Pompeo, one final question. A lot of young people across the country really love TikTok. You guys in the Trump administration were trying to force a sale of TikTok by Chinese interests, and apparently now that's on hold by the Biden administration. And it looks like China's interest in TikTok will continue, at least for the time being. How big a mistake is that?
Laura, my advice to parents hasn't changed. To quote Nancy Reagan, just say no. Tell your kids to stay away from it. their information, their friends' information. A lot of data will be in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party. No parent should want that. I hope the Biden administration will continue down the same path we did and try and prevent the Chinese Communist Party from being inside of our telecommunications infrastructure and stealing American information here at home.
Secretary Pompeo, thank you so much.